We have our brand new user interface with NDI version 5, which gives you waveforms and vector scopes to make sure you're properly exposed. It also gives you unlimited control as far as color control and using your camera. In addition to this, it sounds strange, but we can do pan, tilt and zoom at the same time. Try some other cameras, they can't all do it. The P200 is a fantastic camera that's got every type of connection you can want, from NDI with power over Ethernet, SDI, HDMI, any control interface. It's got a great big tally on the top. It's a really great camera. How to do with the time. And the cool thing is, for a limited time, if you buy 3 P200s, you get a free PTZ controller.
What's going on, everybody? I am Bird Dog John. Thanks for joining us today. And we are going to kick things off here. It is 1 a.m. in Melbourne right now, and that is exactly where I am. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Robbie to the show. What's going on, man? All right, let's see. Hey, what's going on, Judson?
Hey, thanks for having me.
I do much more. We are joined with Bird Dog Ian, who is at the Capture Summit over in Atlanta. So how's it going, man?
Hot and sweaty.
That's the most important question that our team can ask. Why are you needing this camera?
Now, I haven't tested this thing since it got here. This is something that I'm really excited that NDI did. That's cool. Obviously, there are lots of flavors here, but this is the 4250 line. And our little friend here. Say hello to my little friend. It's brewing in the back of my throat. Based on the recommendation of Senseless, we're going to give a Java Monster a try.
Oh, yeah, Pocky,
We
dude.
got a little Pocky, and
Yes.
I have been putting this off for an age.
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
There is a Snacks on Stream mystery box brought to you by my Snacks on Stream manager, Brayton. What's going on, Bugsy?
There you go. What's going on? Balu, good to see you, man.
What's going on, NetHab? Hey, what's going on, Judson? And hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. What's going on, Jeremy? How are you? Thanks for jumping on. Oh, it's all good. Yep. It is time again for the Bird Dog Live Show. How's it going, everybody? I am Bird Dog John. Hopefully you're doing well. I need to check our YouTube feed over on birddogjohn.tv. Whoa. Yeah, all right. That's good and loud, so I'm going to turn my headphones down. Hopefully I didn't scare most of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us. What's going on, India? I know it's over there in 8 o'clock, right? So thanks for jumping on again. This show's for you. You were the one with the idea, and so yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. This will be great. And there is a Snacks on Stream today, so I'm going to do this while eating spicy food. I'll light that up here in a minute. But special shout out to my boy Balu, who got that all set up and good to go, because he went over to Arby's and picked up today's challenge, which is the Diablo Dare. So evidently they make this really spicy, I guess it's like a chicken sandwich or something like that. So we're going to give that a go. I am just adjusting things here because I do want to have the ability to illustrate what it is that I'm talking about. Okay, cool. So I'm using my iPad today to show to talk about what we're going to talk about standardized or simple NDI network designs, kind of talking about cost, talking about a bunch of things. And so we're going to go through that today, and yeah, that'll be great. So pretty excited about that. GoWeb says Indians love spicy food. Yes, that is something I know about the Indian culture, is that spicy food is a part of that. And I don't know if I could handle it. Just going to be honest with you. Not too sure. It's like you don't tell somebody from Georgia that you love spicy food, because they'll make something that will kill you. And so I suspect it's the same over there, where if you're like, oh, I like spicy food, you should probably preface it with, I appreciate spicy food, but I may not be able to hold or keep pace with what you call spicy food. So we'll we'll explore that. But really, we're gonna try this. We're gonna try this Diablo Dare, and they put the sauce that they use on the chicken burger. We bought a couple of burgers and split them up among the. We didn't. Balu went out and got these, so we cut them up, gave them to whoever wanted to try it. So they gave me half of a burger, which seems generous, and then they gave me like some Diablo Dare fries that Arby's is apparently also making. So we're gonna give that a try. But that'll be later. That'll be let's shoot for 11:15. We'll try and keep an eye on that. And oh look, I didn't turn my hair light on. Fail again. This is becoming a regular occurrence. 1 second. Okay, hair light is now. I was going to be like, oh, I'm not wearing a hoodie today, and I'm not wearing glasses today. And then I realized you can barely see me. So there, hair light is on. So much better. Hair light for my hat, not my hair. But anyways, whatever needs to happen. So let's. I'm gonna set this up here. I've got my iPad set up so that we can do some talking about what. Where is it here? Come on now. I'm still not 100% on how to make this look better. Give me a quick second. Oh, it is under templates, maybe. Yes. All right, here we go. All right, let's go with this. Apply to this sheet. Okay. Giddy goo. We're ready to roll. So yeah, we're going to talk about doing some simple NDI networks, kind of the ones that I've designed at least that seem to work pretty well. We also want to spend a little time talking about if money is a consideration. We want to talk about if you have like a medium-sized budget, and then also if money is no object and you're quoting things out for proper NDI use. It's always a balance, right, between whether or not you build a network for a customer that you're never going to get a phone call to come and support, or if they're going to go really inexpensively on you, then you may be there, fixing things or adjusting things. And we really should talk about how to deliver consistent results when designing your NDI network. So that's something we're going to talk about today, and I hope that you will appreciate that conversation. And of course, your comments are very much so welcome. This is not a one-sided conversation. The whole point of this show is so that you and I can talk about these things and learn from each other. And we'll definitely spend some time doing that. I was holding my tongue to see if you'd figure it out for yourself, and you did. So I'm so proud. Yeah. Whoops-a-daisy. The hair light was definitely left off. Partially because I ran in here. They were getting the Diablo Dare challenge all set up, which I could switch to that camera, I guess, and show you exactly what it is that we're looking at doing. However, I know this camera's going to switch. So this is the half burger and fries that they're planning on having me eat on the show. So that'll be fun, at least for you. I also know that there are some guys out in the office that are trying this. Our new hire that we started on Tuesday, she has elected not to join us this time around. Totally fine. She's going to watch all of us have problems with it, evidently. So good times. Can't wait for Snacks on Stream. I found something for you to do on Snacks on Streams. All right, Jeremy. I mean, I have tried a ton of stuff so far, so it probably won't surprise me too much. Send it over. Whatever you got, I'll take a look at it. It looks like it's half eaten already. It isn't. It's been cut with a knife in half, and they've given me half and split the rest up between the Bird Dog Support Tribe. So that is what we're looking at this morning. And it is morning. So it's only 11:12 here in Auburn Hills. Pretty nice day. It's actually a little foggy this morning, so it's a slower drive in, but it's all good. Yeah, please send all Snacks on Stream ideas over. Brayton is the unofficial official manager of Snacks on Stream, with the backup of Balu, who evidently got this morning's Snacks on Stream underway. So pretty thankful for that. But all ideas are indeed welcome. Now, I still hold the ultimate, like, will I or won't I try that? So if you're planning on sending me some truly like I, for example, looked into the one chip challenge, which by the way has doubled in price in the past month for some reason, perhaps because they're done making this year's one chip challenge and now they're developing next year's. And so there's less supply for the demand, but I don't know. I don't actually know why. So the one chip challenge has increased in price, but I was reading some reviews of people that tried it. And there's one, I think it's a lady. I can't tell because the only picture they posted was of them in the hospital with an IV. And so I thought, maybe I don't want to have the potential of going to the hospital while live on stream trying to talk NDI. I don't think that's fun for me. And that's not really the precedent that we want to set here on the show. So I don't know about one chip challenge, but we'll see. Anyways. The kids made it last night and affected everyone in the house just in the air. Oh boy. Now I'm really curious. What is this that you've created? That makes me a little bit nervous. If the kids made it and it hurt all the adults. Yeah, let me know. Any idea is welcome. Like I said, I reserve the right to veto. But this one, I'm genuinely interested because overall, I've been fairly disappointed when people say, "Oh, be careful, it's spicy," and it's from a fast food restaurant. It is, but it's like Midwestern spicy. It's not Southern spicy, and it's certainly not India spicy, and it's certainly not, what the rest of the world would consider that. So, did you see the link that I sent on here? I did not see the link. You may need to email us. Which you could do at help@birddog.tv and just say snacks on stream idea. It will open a ticket for you, but we'll route that to the correct department. I promise you. Balu is not too sure. I don't know what this actually means, but he's given me the stink eye. So what's going on, Gene? How are you? Ooh, nice camera in your photo. Is that it's a little hard to see, but anyways. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for jumping on. I don't know which Facebook page you hail from, but thank you for jumping on. Appreciate that. Okay, so I want to kind of eat this while it's warm, and then we're going to get into the NDI networking discussion right after that. So that is the plan, and we will. Let's talk NDI. So here we go.
John's just making up stuff to start drama.
Look, I don't know.
Look at him.
Wish me luck, folks. It's my first Vegemite experience.
Final, this is like cheese flavor or something. It doesn't really look too appetizing.
Good golly, this is something else, man.
Here's the thing about Pop Rocks, and I don't know if I'm the only one like this. Pop Rocks have always been a social experience for me.
I did not think that is what you were going to say. That's hilarious.
That is awful. Oh, God, that's so bad. Jeez. Holy smokes, man.
Yep. It is that time again for Snacks on Stream. So today we are trying out the Diablo Dare from Arby's. So here we go. We're going to find out what their definition of spicy is. This is some sort of challenge, evidently. And then they've also included the spice on the fries. So I don't want to necessarily... let's just put my keyboard out here. I don't need this for now. So I don't want to, change my palate before I actually eat the burger. And so let's have that first to try and get this in the shot. It's shared among the office, which is why it's cut in half. But this is a chicken burger from Arby's with some sort of spice on it. I'm not even too sure what else they've got in here. Maybe that looks like jalapenos. So there's hope. And also the bun looks like it's like infused with the sauce that they're using. It's red of some sort. So I don't really know. I don't know what I'm eating other than it was brought to the office this morning, and we're going to give this a go. So wish me luck, folks. This is the Diablo Dare from Arby's. I'll let you know. And oh, by the way, I have only water to subdue this, so I might be calling an SOS to my team out in the lobby, who I don't even know if they're watching. So here we go. I mean, flavor's right. I'm a big fan of chicken, like chicken burgers and stuff, so that's always good. I am eating it. It's not, since we compare everything to this, it's not Korean spicy. Certainly not anything close to the one-time spicy. And of course, they're appealing to an American market, which appreciates spicy food, but really can't handle it, especially up here in Michigan. I think the spicy market in Michigan is lacking. Mm-hmm. So Balu has reported that you're going to be fine because I was fine. Apparently, I have more tolerance than Balu does. You won't need it, meaning the liquid to cool things off. It's got a good kick the more that you eat it. It's building a little bit. It's not too bad. Oh, just everyone from Michigan. Well, look, if I want true spicy food, I'm probably not going to find it in this state. It's genuinely delicious, though. All I heard was it's magically delicious from the Lucky Charms jingle. And then I pictured Clay saying that in a cliche leprechaun voice. So there's that. It is actually really the burger itself is quite good. I would definitely order this. However, it has spice. Like, I think for the average person, yeah, you might call that spicy. I don't know about being here on Snacks on Stream. That's we're looking for Snacks on Stream Extreme, right? All right, here are those French fries. They definitely have the crinkle fry from the cafeteria taste, right? And then the spicy sauce on it. Not as spicy as the burger, that's for sure. So these are, the starch is actually helping with the heat. It's removing the heat. So genuinely, though, like if you go into Arby's and say, I want to try the Diablo Dare, is there like a prize for eating it, or is it just like it's a spicy sandwich and we're pretending like it's a challenge? The fries are good. Fries are quite good. Yeah. It's genuinely it's a good meal, though. Gonna have to do some extra crunches or something, though, eating these French fries. All right, so it's empty. And it is genuinely, I would agree with Senseless. It's delicious. I would also agree with Balu. It's I'll be fine. But it was good. And if you're looking for a little spice here in Michigan, check out the Diablo Dare at Arby's, or anywhere, I guess. But yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it is good, though. So all right, we're all in lockstep here. We appreciate this. I don't think it's marked as a challenge. It's just a new spicy combo deal. It says the Diablo Dare on their signs. I have an Arby's near my house, and I was like, oh, is it like a? I think that's what the package of the fries says too. I'm like, what's the dare? But anyway, they want you to go on TikTok and eat the whole thing and then post them in it. Not an ad. Interesting. Water. I got like a pepper or something right at the back of my throat, so every time I swallow wrong. Okay. Well, bring the keyboard back. That was excellent. I like it. Spicier than Wendy's spicy chicken. We'll put it that way. But not spicier than one-time Korean spicy noodles. So if you know those references, you're in good company. Hey, look, an NDI question. So I'm running 2 PF120s over the network with NDI, and I love them. They work great. That sentence stands on its own. But here comes the but. And what a big but it is. The BirdDog PTZ controller, can that control them as presets on Zoom using the controller in Zoom in and out? Okay, hang on. Let me dissect this a bit. What's going on, Sweden? How are you? Okay, so let's dissect this a bit. Yes, the BirdDog PTZ controller can control the PF120's Zoom and presets. Yes. I have a PF120. Let me just switch over to this computer now real quick. So this shot is a PF120 right here. And that is just for some changing it up in terms of some different flavor of shots. But yeah, it can definitely save presets and it can control the zoom. It can also control the autofocus, the focus option and some of the coloration. But yes, it is definitely an option for you if you are looking to use. Now, did anybody else catch what happened overnight? Bueller, hold the phone. What happened overnight? Somebody. Anybody know? Let's go over to the BirdDog website. I'm on my way. I just want to be sure because I actually haven't checked. Oh, snap. So over on the BirdDog website, it's pretty exciting that, let's share. Can I share this? Present, share screen, share a Chrome tab. This one. Look what I have here. PTZ keyboard NDI 5. So the keyboard has gotten the NDI 5.5 update. This brings the NDI libraries up to NDI 5, which is the same as all the cameras. So it makes sense that the library should be the same. So if you have done LTS and you're on 214 and your baseboard's up to date, switch on over to NDI 5. That's the latest update. There are some release notes with some known limitations that you need to double check. Okay. But yeah, cool stuff there is that NDI 5 for keyboard is now available. So boom goes the dynamite. That's pretty exciting. And you guys didn't see any of that, did you? Good times. So NDI 5, let's try this again. I'm using 2 screens, which is why I'm using 1 screen, which is the problem. Let's share this. And now let's do this little number. Okay, let's try this again. Here it is. NDI 5. That is the actual, and can I pull this up now and I can like manipulate it? Yeesh. So if you are on 214, you go to the downloads page, click on cameras. I actually think that keyboard deserves its own spot. But anyways, you click on cameras at the bottom of the camera list. The keyboard update is there. And the NDI 5 update is now available. So this brings us up to NDI 5.5 for keyboard, just like cameras. And all the libraries talk the same. Again, no limitations are listed in the release notes. So double check those in case you need to see that. But boom goes the dynamite. Another release into the wild. Please, by all means, update your keyboard and then let us know how it's going. Here's an odd thing is I just realized vMix was also recording a video file. So who knows what that was doing to my GPU level. But we're in good shape now. Hopefully it's didn't affect too much on the other side. I didn't even notice that until I looked over and I was like, wait a minute. That's not supposed to be on. We dare you to promote us on TikTok. Right. Free advertisements on everyone's TikTok. Hello. Are there any plans to integrate PoE into BirdDog Play in order to avoid using USB-C to power input? Definitely make things easier for deployment. Not at present. And I'll tell you why. The reason is money. We wanted to create this product. The developers wanted to create this product where It was the least expensive that it could possibly be. And doing it over USB, modern day TVs since like I think it was like 98 or something like that, all have USB ports on the back of them that supply 5 volts. I forget how many volts it is. But anyways, it's a pretty standardized feature on most televisions. And so the PoE module would have increased the price by 2/3, which means it would have been like $250 for a play and not $150 for a play. And so their thought process was, no, we want this to be as low cost as possible and to just use existing power on the back of televisions that's already provided. And so that was the idea initially for the first launch. Not saying that they wouldn't consider that for like a second generation in a couple of years, but a PoE module to actually do that on a single board is actually a significant price increase. And so they decided to not do that. And that was the end result of that consideration, as far as I know. All right. Well, the other day, Mr. GoWeb was inquiring if I had any sort of recommendations when it came to setting up networks and how we think about networks and how we configure them. Now, disclaimer, all right? Everybody's different and everybody's resources are different and everybody's networking abilities are different and we're all different, all right? So, understanding that before we talk about this sort of thing means that some people will strongly disagree with me that the way that I do something is the right way to do it. I've had numerous people who won't talk to me because I won't tell them how to set it up on. Well, because I recommend not setting it up on an unmanaged switch, for example, and so they don't believe I'm a proper network admin because I should be flexible enough to integrate any networking device on the entire market and make my NDI cameras work with those. And to some extent, I understand the complaint that like perhaps resources are low. My counter to that, though, is you bought a high performance product and it is very NDI. I mean, as I understand, I'm probably going to get in trouble here with this, but NDI is the networking standard now when it comes to sending video over IP. I mean, there are other protocols and legacy stuff, but quite honestly, if you watch the market and what it is that they're doing, if you're interested in sending it over IP, it has really become the market standard over the past couple of years. It struggled to get off the ground for the first 3 years, but then major players started integrating it. Adobe, Zoom has like Zoom Rooms are basically talking native NDI. Things like Microsoft, those companies are adapting it. You start having switching companies that write profiles specifically for NDI. We can pretty much confidently say now that this is a legit, real way to do it. And if you're looking at the lowest latency possible, NDI is the answer. And so we're really happy about that and really excited that NDI is really taking off in a lot of the major spaces. There are some amazing things that are happening with NDI in multiple places. When you think about video and transmitting video, obviously the things that you can see right away are the ones that come to mind. And the major complaint with NDI these days is it's not fast enough for IMAG. I would argue that it is if you do it correctly, but I would also, again, that's a subjective, it's up to you what you expect. But NDI is used a whole lot more than just IMAG. NDI is used for piping things out to the internet. NDI is used for passing things around the world. NDI is used for, if you can convert it into NDI, you can basically get it anywhere as long as you have internet connection. But it's also used for like back-end processes. So, maybe you have a couple of my examples that I really like are, okay, so we got a basketball arena, we got a basketball game going on inside, and we got concession stands out in the lobby. Well, you can put TVs now in the lobby and put Bird Dog Plays on the back of those TVs, plug them in, and you can pipe the NDI output from your vMix machine or TriCaster or whatever, or a secondary output for that matter, to all of those screens. And if you're running it in multicast, it's really lightweight compared to TCP. It's lightweight on your network, but it's high quality, really high quality. And NDI now gives us that flexibility to do that sort of stuff. And so, I as one example, another example, for example, is I'm doing a production in a theater, and I want to see the stage, and I want to send that along with the microphone audio around the system behind stage. And so we have some TVs on carts, or we have something mounted in the dressing rooms or whatever. What we do is we take a pretty inexpensive camera and slap an inexpensive encoder on it. So like a Flex In maybe, or maybe we go ahead and we get the PF 120 and we fix mount that inside the theater pointed at the stage. And then when there's a production and we turn that system on, the NDI starts being generated, and it goes and automatically links up to the Bird Dog plays that are on the displays in the back rooms, and people can see and hear what's happening on stage at all times. They know where they're at in the show. It's a lot of the exact, like, I need to hear it when it happens or see it exactly when it happens, and it can't be without frames, without frame loss. A lot of that back end stuff doesn't really matter as much. Obviously, it can't be really delayed, or your timing cues would be off. But just having like general awareness. So we talk about back plane video or behind the scenes production video, all the things that we use to keep everybody involved on the technical side or in the show or whatever, all on the same page. NDI is becoming a very inexpensive way to do it at a high quality rate. And so it's a nice medium between, having great quality, but having, great performance as well, and being able to deliver that around the institution. So I really like where NDI is going. I also like the fact that it seems to be getting more and more agile. Every time new tech comes out with an NDI release, it's always got a handful of like really great new features that will revolutionize the way that people like. And it seems to me, to NDI's credit, they're listening to the market, and they're talking to people in the field, and they're saying, yeah, I can't use NDI yet though, because it doesn't do X. And then like, that's what happened with NDI 5. They came out with just like a bunch of tool sets. They're like, look, you don't have the resources or the money to have a real router, or, audio stuff is an issue, or X, Y, and Z. And then they came out with a handful of new tools that basically allow you to utilize NDI and get it into the workflow. And once you get the workflow up and running and you have a system that can handle it, NDI gives you a way more versatility than BNC will. And so I'm really happy with the way that things are going in the NDI realm, because it seems like they're not just aimlessly imposing on you how they think it should be used. They're actually listening to the market. And I would say the same about Bird Dog, by the way. The play is a response to that. Is basically, we saw that NDI 5 was going to have an ARM process. We wanted to be sure that we packaged it correctly, that it was inexpensive. To go back to Oliver's question there, it's like we wanted it to be inexpensive. We want it to be simple to use, very straightforward. Plug it in, go to the web UI, link the source, walk away. Like super simple, not complex or anything. So I think it's very fascinating where NDI is going, because every iteration, every major update enables a whole bunch of new ideas and concepts, and workflow, enables workflow, genuine workflow. And that's huge, because there's lots of companies that'll just make a product and tell you how to use it. And then there are companies that'll say like, well, we made this, but we want you to figure out how you will use it best. And then we want to take your feedback from what you're still missing and consider, integrating that as well. Which is why I say, look, if you have suggestions for features or whatever, you need to send those to help@birddog.tv, and we'll put them in the feature request. There's no guarantee they're going to get integrated. We'll definitely listen, and we'll definitely consider it, and maybe ask you some questions about what specifically you're looking for. But then, yeah, by all means, we'll send it over to the engineers and see what they think. Because a lot of our great ideas actually come from other people having great ideas, but wouldn't it be great if the product did this? And wouldn't it be great if the keyboard had a way to see what camera it's controlling? And so we came up with Keyboard Router. That was a suggestion, I believe, from a client. So, there you go. That stuff, we do listen. We are trying. And so do other people in the industry. So, that's really cool to see NDI kind of evolving like that. Okay. I have eaten a spicy sandwich, but I'm not really feeling any sort. Man, I keep hitting this thing. Not really feeling any sort of detrimental side effects to that. So that's good news. But let's talk a little bit about now. Oh, wait, let me get into a couple of these questions before I start doing that. Oh, whoops, wrong computer. Let me back up. Okay, understand. Thanks for the explanation. You're very welcome. How dare you be so bold, John? Oh, chat is filtering links. Yeah, YouTube actually, is it? Nightbot does on Twitch, but I don't know about that. But yeah, it may not let you post links. I'm not too sure. I use NDI for iMag at some very large shows and it pulled it off. Small delay, but was usable. And what's really cool about this, Gene, is that once you get it to NDI, it's not just good for iMag, right? Like it does that well, but it also gives you the flexibility to use those signals elsewhere. And so, yeah, there's huge benefits to getting into the NDI realm. If it's just like, I need those 2 frames on my screen to be eliminated, so I have to run BNC. It's like, okay, well, that's a very specific use case then, if 2 frames is an issue. But from the NDI standpoint. But if you can live with the slight delay, it makes your video way more versatile for whatever else you need to use. So I tried sharing my setup design image. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that may be restricted on YouTube. I'm not too sure. Listening to the market is huge. What's going on, Silas? How are you? Good to see you again. Thanks for coming back. Another question. Last week, I had to use a Flex in order to acquire a PowerPoint in my workflow. That's what I'm doing here with my, I got an iPad. I'll show you that in a minute. As we were encountering some problems with the network, not managed by me, unfortunately, I tried to lower as much as possible the bandwidth used. It was not possible to go under 80. Would it be possible to allow switching on an HX or HX2 quality on the Flex? So in theory, if Silicon 2 comes to the encoder line, then yes. It was giving you issues on the network at 80 megs. First of all, I've said this before, that little threshold slider is literally that. It's a threshold slider. And so it's going to just like limit the packets that are coming out. And so it's going to compromise either the image or the quality or the speed or something. I don't actually know what it is that they change, but it does compromise the signal, like the actual image itself, by lowering down that threshold. So running it in NDI managed basically just means the camera or the encoder will take what it needs. So yeah, the network concern with NDI is the consideration there. We'll talk a little bit about that too when we do this little demonstration or this discussion. But yeah, the HX would obviously be less bandwidth, and yes, that would be fine. If you're using PowerPoint and you're sending that to a screen, like if you're doing full screen on like a second monitor, for example, you could use something like Screen Capture, which is an NDI tool, to convert it to NDI right there and send that across. And there is a Screen Capture HX version. I have yet to get it to work, but that may just be me being me and not putting in the time and effort to make the HX stuff work, but it like keeps rebooting on me for some reason, like at random. So I feel like I'm missing something. But anyways, screen capture might be an option. If you're running your PowerPoint in full screen, you can run screen capture in the background, and then it will output the screen as an NDI choice. And then you can, if you're running the screen capture HX in theory, then it would be a small NDI, like, because PowerPoint, it's not about frames, right? It's just if you click next, then it takes 1,000, 1,000, and it switches. It's not a huge deal. Live video, that's different. But yeah, I get you, Oliver. All right. StreamPod. Oh, that must be a GoWeb, I think. All right, I'll check that out in a second there, Stream. Hello, I have no sound with a PlayStation 5 on a Flex 4 in. Is this a known problem? I believe this is a HDCP issue, if I'm not mistaken. So PlayStation 5 has HDCP enabled. I think you can turn it off. However, into a Flex in over HDMI, I don't know if that's an issue or not. I know the analog thing is having some issues. It's a left channel only problem, but I don't know. There may be an HDCP like encryption problem there. Does PlayStation 5 allow you to turn off HDCP? I know they did in PlayStation. I'm pretty sure they did in PlayStation 4, I'm not sure about PlayStation 5. I actually have not seen one yet, so I don't know. And truth be told, we don't test gaming systems on our NDI line yet, partially just because we don't have access to them. Sounds like a great office purchase. So I don't know of it. However, if Senseless is hanging around, he might be able to attest to some of that. I'm not too sure. But gaming systems traditionally are encrypted and protected content that you're not supposed to reproduce. And so the HTTP protocols get in the way. But yeah, there you go. DC out on a flex out. Why? Power remote monitors with with PoE through the flex out. Yeah, you're right. There isn't DC on a flex out, right? I'm not too sure what the deal was there. I should ask about that. Yeah, there must be a reason. Anyways, I guess they're assuming that you already have power if you're going out. If you're going in, you might be powering a camera or something, or a Black Magic monitor. I don't know. Shared on Facebook Live. Okay, cool. Yeah, I see it. I see it here. Let me pull that up. View on Facebook. There it is. Boom. Okay. Yoink and yoink. All right. What are you using to stream to multiple platforms? This is a StreamYard. And so I'm going up to StreamYard. I'm getting several streams going to individual platforms, which I've authorized. But I can also, generate this into an actual RTMP, like a custom RTMP connection. So there's that option as well. But this is just StreamYard, and I'm using vMix, and I'm sending the vMix NDI output over to a secondary computer that is then using NDI webcam to convert that into StreamYard yardability. It's converting the audio into NDI virtual inputs, and then doing NDI video into the USB input, basically, for StreamYard. And then I'm sending that up, so I can sit here and switch sources in vMix with my X keys, and it portrays that over here on the second screen. So that's how I do that. How many NDI streams can a flex in handle without multicast? Well, a flex in can. What? Wait, hang on. What? How many NDI streams can a flex in handle without multicast? What do you mean? Because flex in is to generate NDI, right? So you would only be creating NDI with that unit. You wouldn't be accepting flex. So a flex out, if you mean. And let me scroll down here. Okay, so yeah, flex out. I mean, it just shows one at a time. You could certainly set it up to switch between sources. There isn't technically a ceiling on how many, like if you refresh the list a few times and then pulled it down, it should see everything on your network. But wouldn't ingest things simultaneously necessarily. Provide some clarity there, because I don't think I'm answering it correctly. Hey, you can use NDI for IMAG in venues so big that you can't see the talent and the screen at the same time. Or that's just it, is like the screens are on the sides and the talent is like, little tiny guy on stage. That helps. That it helps people who are way in the back to see things. So I would agree. Wait for Silicon 2 update. Yes, that was about that's about the HX protocol. I don't know what the timeline is for. I know Silicon 2 for cameras is like primary. So I don't even know about the Flexer 4K line yet when it comes to Silicon 2. HDCP is off, he says. PlayStation may be sending Dolby 5.1 audio instead of stereo. Oh, there's an interesting idea. Restream, I suppose. No, this is StreamYard. I used to use Restream, but now I use StreamYard. Yo. vMix desktop capture is also an option. Yeah, you're right. If you were to, for the PowerPoint conversation, yes. Yep, that could have been an option to use the screen capture. The thing is that I didn't have access to the computer. I was just allowed to get the HDMI output and plug it into a Flex. I see. Interesting. So yeah, the Flex. I mean, if you're having networking bandwidth issues, then yeah, the Flex is really needing 140 megs. So I would, uh, I would discuss with the venue prior, prior to, um, hang on here. Sorry. Yeah, prior to that, I would discuss with the venue because it really needs a little more setup time than that to make it work correct, to make NDI in general work correctly. So that's a bummer. DC out is on the Flex in, not the Flex out. Correct. How many clients can connect to the same Flex in? Oh, I see. Without multicast, well, it depends on your network, really. I mean, it's 140 megs per connection. So the port on the Flex, let's say peak performance is a gig, let's say more like 600. And so that's what, 4 sources, maybe 5 if you're lucky. And then whatever your network can handle. So if it can handle 800 megs through the pipe and to each of those individual spots, then let's say 5. But yeah, you're making individual connections in TCP. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Multicast is going to be the way to make that happen if you probably need to go bigger than 4 or 5. He means how many decoders can view the feed from a Flex in? Yeah, sorry. Answer, bandwidth. Boom. That is the answer. Correct, NetHab. I've attached the confidence monitor with that, powering it with a Flex in DC out. There you go. Yeah. So did you have to make your own cable for that? Because it's a barrel connector, right? So were you able to take the barrel connector from the monitor and just plug it right in, or was it something else? Just hanging in the background, listening, learning, wanting. You wanted the Diablo Dare burger that Balu brought us today, and we've all tried. It was excellent, by the way. Okay, thank you, chat. That was fun. And I got looking at chat, and then you guys kept chatting, so it's all good. It's all good. Yes, barrel connector. But did you like hotwire your own, or did you just use it from the device? That's curious. All right, I am going to switch over to my screen share here, and this is my my iPad that I can write stuff on, which is a lot of fun. And let's just talk about how some of this stuff works, because how the NDI network stuff works, because it's already 10 to 12 and I haven't even talked about the topic of today. So here we go. So we want to talk through how to set up our NDI network and what the price might be associated with that. Now, I'm going to be talking in US dollars because that's the market that I'm in. But I've done a few of these and I've tested a few of these. And we're going to talk about small, medium, large, and in particular about budget when it comes to small, medium, large. Now, I want to share with you initially, GoWeb sent over his layout here. And so he's got some cameras and some stuff that's all functioning over the network. Okay, so his NDI network, let's just briefly talk about this. He's got P120s, brand new ones. That's great. He's got 3 of those going into a switch, which is an M4250. He's got a P100, but he's got the PF120 on there. But anyways, it's all good. He's got a P100 or maybe a PF120, I don't know. And then he's got a Flex in that's running on a camera. And they're all going into an M4250 via his LAN network. Okay. And then he's got, now it says the red line is SDI, but I don't think that's quite right. So he's got these going into his Netgear 4250, and then Ethernet going out of the 4250 into 4 Flex outs, which are then being converted from HDMI to SDI, and then the SDI lines are going into his video switcher. Okay, so this is fine. I would probably be tempted to spread this out over 2 switches, just if I'm giving pointers here and money is no object. If in a perfect world, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 NDI devices. And if we're running in TCP, it's going to stress the network a bit. If you're running in, because you've got 5 sources and you've got 4 decoders, right? And maybe that's not literal. Maybe you have 5 sources and 5 decoders. But anyways, we've got a fair bit going on in the network. And so you may consider two things. First, you may, if you're running with N4250, run it in NDI 5 profile and run it in multicast. That's probably the most ideal when it comes to NDI 5, the P120s. The converter is going to be an NDI 4, but it should be fine. I've got one here, and I'm actually using that today for this, and I'm not getting dropped frames or anything like that. So, oh, that's funny. Let's let me go back to this. So, yeah, I'd probably recommend going with something like a multicast setup on that switch, and that way you're only passing the packets once, right? And you're letting the switch do the work, but also that's just for usability, ease of use. It might be fine. I mean, if it's a 1-for-1 ratio, it doesn't really matter, I guess. But anyways, otherwise, I would recommend two switches, two small 4250 switches. So just even the 10 porters or 12 porters, I forget what they are total. But if you break them up over two, and you could do, two encode devices, two decode devices, three encode devices, three decode, or whatever, however you have it set up, per, and then just jumper them with some, LC fiber connections, and do a double trunk out of one into the other. So at least you get 2 gigs between the two. And then it kind of shares the load, and there's way more processing power. Your CPU and memory usage is going to be really low overall, and you'll get really good performance out of it. But as you start to expand, especially TCP, as you start to expand, people are really going to like your results that you're getting, and then they're going to want to add more stuff. You just need to have the flexibility to do it. So I would always share the workload between the two. Let me just throw in here. GoWeb says just that you need to make sure that you have enough juice left on the PoE switch to make sure that you have that connect. Yeah. Your PoE budget is also to be considered. So that's a great observation here too, GoWeb, is that you've got all these devices are PoE plus powered. And so you need to make sure that your budget is within reason. And so to have a couple of 4250s may just give you more flexibility, but it really depends on budget, depends on what the client is looking for. Actually, I am using 3 flex outs and 1 flex in and 2 P120s. Okay. So in that scenario, then you've got 3 sources in, 3 sources out. You're probably pushing close to a gig, but that switch should be able to handle it fine in either TCP or multicast mode. Again, as you expand, multicast is going to be more of your friend. And we've done Jake, Bird Dog Jake, which you guys know, has set up his entire infrastructure as multicast, and he was just on site at a theater this week where he was setting them up for multicast, and it was performing really well. So I really do recommend that sort of stuff. Those consider at least take some time to test between the protocols. The NDI 5 multicast stuff, you don't need to do anything on the switch side because it's already enabled in the NDI 5 profile. So that's really convenient for customers. For my camera rig, I power my monitor from my Flex in DC out with a barrel male-to-male cable. It works great. I wish to do the same for the same confidence monitors. Interesting. Yeah, I'll see what the decision was there. I don't quite know why the limitation is there with the Flex outs, but there's probably a logical reason for it. Should I use the NDI 4 or NDI 5 profile for the M4250s when setting up multiple flexes? Multiple flexes, I would go with the NDI 5 stuff and test it. I mean, obviously don't just like do it today and do a show tonight, but set up your 4250, do the NDI 5 profile. If you're doing multiple flexes, so flex ins and outs, or depending on what you're using them for, you could definitely set them up in multicast. That's fine too. Yeah, there's a mention here of RUDP. It is less overhead than TCP, but I'm not 100% convinced with RUDP yet. And it's not anything that I can like stand on, but I still find TCP to be king of the castle. And if you're just looking at lowering threshold, yeah, try RUDP, but ultimately the multicast piece is really the piece. And with a 4250, I mean, it's almost like why bother with anything else after you get to a certain threshold or a limitation. NDI HX doesn't work on our network. IT manages all of the switches, so we don't have control. So multiple switch hops, not router hops, seems to be the issue. Oh, what's going on, Sean? Using extreme network switches. So interesting. NDI HX, does full NDI work? That's curious. So full disclosure, BirdDog doesn't have an HX protocol yet integrated. That's a Silicon 2 thing that hasn't been launched. But if you're having issues with BirdDog stuff, that's full NDI. That's different, and is a fair bit more demanding of the network. But what about NDI HX doesn't work? Because or is it just that the ports are closed and the IT department hasn't opened them for that? Do you have an NDI VLAN? Like, there's a few questions here that we could ask, right? So full NDI works. Oh, interesting. Full NDI works. Oh, that's very interesting. Because you would think that if full NDI worked, HX is like the coloring book version. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's not. It's not. That's very strange. Ooh, Discovery Server. There's a good way to try that. So NetHab has a good suggestion that you could use. Yeah, they might be blocking the MDNS broadcast, and so Discovery Server might be your answer because that takes care of that. Interesting. Very interesting. Sorry, I missed one up here. Once the converters support NDI 5, use RUDP. We said that. Scotty, I use a setup for commentators, USB interface to the commentators, vMix PC NDI streaming vMix PC. You can also look at NDI's free audio command line tool that's in the SDK. Ian Foster sent that to me. Ah, man, I meant to look at that. I just let time get away from me, apparently. Yeah, Ian sent that to me, and he was like, here it is. And then I didn't get around to testing it. So, all right, I still have yet to draw anything on my iPad. So let's get to it. All right, so let's talk briefly just about some simple NDI setups. Now, the first three that I'm going to talk about are all what I would say are my like go-to recommendations. If you have a blank slate and you just want to get it up and running and have the least amount of problems, there are some things that I would recommend that you do to make it easier for yourself and like everyone else that comes after you in the NDI world. So obviously, you guys all know this about me, but I'm going to recommend that you use a DHCP server and or service, we'll say. And the DHCP service is the thing that issues the IP addresses. What it also does is a whole bunch of things behind the scenes. And so when you enable this on a network through a router or layer 3 switch or something like that, it gives you the very flexibility. Yeah, and I'm sorry about my handwriting. Gives you the flexibility to add devices quickly, but also to control the devices in a more sophisticated way that's better all around when it comes to actually moving packets across the network. And so DHCP service is something that I strongly recommend that you look into and getting one that is fairly reliable. Now, I haven't had a ton of problems with like the gateways from Unify. They seem to work just fine in the DHCP setup. However, the 4250 realm also has, it's a layer 3 switch, which essentially means that you can turn on these types of services just on the switch and you don't need anything further up the chain. And so that really simplifies things a lot. And so the first network I want to talk about an actual medium level network. Okay. So this is kind of like we have some budget, we're buying some cameras, we want to just make sure that we do it right, but not the sky's the limits. So let's say we have camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3, and these are going to be like, PF120, the P120, and maybe we have like a P200 or something like that. So we've got whoops, my face is over okay, this says P200 over here. So we've got these three, and just like GoWeb here, he's got a fairly good switch, and so I'm going to say I've got a 4250. Whoops a daisy. I'm going to have a 4250 series switch, and it can just be the 4212P. Whoops, And my brain is going ahead of my hands. So this could be like the 4212. Oh man, I almost did it again. I did do it again. 2P, which is just like their entry level for this scenario. And then over here, I'm going to be sending this over to, vMix, but I'm also going to send this to like a flex out on a TV that's inside my studio that's going to run like a vMix multi-viewer or something like that, or a play or something. We'll throw a play in here as well. So what I want to do, and this is a more of a logical stance than anything, but what I want to do is, and we're going to do this in Bird Dog Green because why not? Is I'm going to connect these cameras to this 4250, but on this 4250, I am going to say this is going to be an isolated network, and vMix is actually going to have 2 NIC cards in it. Okay, so the computer that's running vMix is going to have 2 connections. So the first thing we're going to logically do is we're going to connect all of these cameras to the 4250, which is the 4212, and then we're going to also connect one of the vMix ports, and then we're going to connect these as well. So we're using 8 ports on this, or I'm sorry, we're using 6 ports on this switch. Then I am going to take a secondary connection, and I'm going to have a crappy cloud up here, which is not a good drawing. And we're going to get back to this, and we're going to make another physical NIC card connection to a network that is connected to the internet. Now, modern day NIC cards are going to be able to issue 2 different MAC addresses. If you have an older NIC card from like the early 2000s or before, sometimes they have the same MAC address on both NIC channels. It's actually not that common anymore, but sometimes it is. So if you're having this issue where you plug in both into different networks and you're starting to get all these network errors, back that off. PCIe, 16 dual NIC cards are like $15. So do yourself a favor, get gigabit NIC cards and plug them in to that vMix machine. Then in this scenario, I'm actually quite fine with a TCP with an NDI 5 profile. This should be a single VLAN. So we're just going to make this like VLAN 10. And VLAN 10 is going to be across ports 1 through 6. So inside the 4250, we're going to set up an NDI 5 profile. We're going to call it VLAN 10. And we're going to enable the DHCP service on here. And you can make the IP address whatever you want. My recommendation is try and swim within some sort of like respectable lane. And so something that's recognizable, 10.10.10 something or 192.168 something. That's all well and good. A lot of guys, just to make it easy for people who are not network administrators, like to name their VLANs the subgroup that they're going to use. So, or the subnet mask that they're going to use. So in our scenario, we're going to make a VLAN 10, and on here, we're going to set the DHCP to issue addresses in the 192.168.10, right? VLAN 10 dot realm. All right. So this is anytime a device plugs into VLAN 10, it's going to get a 192.168.10 address. Now, it's just a coincidence that VLAN 10, that this 10 octet is the same as this. And we did that on purpose because we want to identify this is VLAN 10. So it's a nice, clean way. If you're going to do multiple VLANs or you're going to have multiple NDI infrastructures or whatever, it's a nice, clean networking way to know that I'm on the proper network that I'm supposed to be on. This particularly comes in helpful this is helpful when you have multiple studios that you want to isolate via like different IP addresses, but you want to give them their own VLANs, but you want an easy way to identify what VLAN it's on. So if you're in another room and you get a 10 address, I'm on the wrong port on the switch or something, or I've mismanaged the switch and I need to go back and change this port to be on the correct VLAN. So that's like a nice little way to kind of help you out as the network designer, is just to name your VLANs the same as your subgroup. Now, remember, this number, it has a limit. And so most network administrators, not everybody, most network administrators work in VLAN realms of 10. So a very typical way of logging into a switch and looking at the back end, you would see VLAN 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. It doesn't have to be that way. There's no requirement for that, but it is just kind of a nice way to differentiate between, I'm on the 10 network, I'm on the 20 network, I'm on the 30. That means that you're getting 10 addresses, but it also means that you're on VLAN 10. So it's a very clean way to organize your network that way. Okay. These cameras, regardless about what products you buy, I mean, that's the flexibility and what your client wants. That's the flexibility. But this is literally to get this off the ground in this scenario is a 4250. And I think that switch is $700. So that's a medium network. Like that's a medium task. We've got multiple sources, multiple destinations. That's kind of medium level. You're doing something like this. Like in this studio, I've got one 4250 that runs this whole rig. I've got 5 cameras and I've got 2 decoders. And so I'm exceeding the limit here. However, I am running in multicast. So and not TCP. So, my scenario is very similar and I get really good results out of this studio. So this would be like, we want to do a production every week, or we want to put this in a theater, and we want 3 cameras. We want to teach our students. We want to put this in a church, and we want to stream every Sunday and every Wednesday or whatever they're meeting. That sort of scenario. This is kind of what we're expecting, and I think that this is a reasonable price to pay for networking. The for sure costs are going to be your networking cables and your switch. The 4250 can do the layer 3 stuff that you're looking for. And there are ways to configure this, which we would get into in an education course. There are ways to configure the 4250 so that you can get internet on this VLAN. In this, the way that I have designed this network, it is primarily for, oh, there's the camera. Oh yeah, I can scroll. The way that I've designed this is that it's an isolated network and that there is no internet, but there's no outsiders either. Like nobody's going to breach your network unless they physically unplug a device and plug into your VLAN. No one's going to hack into your network because they don't have access to this VLAN. So unless you give them admin control of your networking devices. So this way you keep everything isolated. Nobody's manipulating your cameras while you're not giving them authorization to. But and the reason to this vMix with the dual NIC cards keeps this NDI network isolated so that it's totally closed off. And it's just a nice clean design. It's literally what I'm doing in this office. And the grand total cost for that network is less than $1,000, which I think for high performance video is reasonable. All right, let's go to a page 2. So now we're going to talk about a small network. Okay. And this small network, we are going to really take into consideration that money is a factor. And so we've scraped together enough on the budget to get some cameras to add to our network that already exists. And we need another switch or maybe we have a switch or something like that, but everything's, maybe we're running a Dante network, everything's already statically assigned, or we don't have the bandwidth to do something as sophisticated as a 4250. It's like, okay, well, it can be done with some free tools that are available. However, it isn't going to be as sophisticated as the medium-sized network. And so we just need to understand and accept the fact that that's the truism. And our network will not be as high performance as that next one. Whereas if you were to spend $1,000 on the network, it would be a little better. So the small network kind of looks like this. So let's still say that we have a vMix machine, and we're going to put that over here as our exit point. But we scraped enough money to get together like 3 cameras and a keyboard. Okay, we put our budget, we fundraised and whatever, and the church went out and bought 3 cameras and a keyboard. But we really don't have the bandwidth to do anything else. Like we really stretched it to get this package. Now we have, maybe we have some unmanaged switch. Maybe we'll put that in here. Unmanaged, MANA, managed. And this is just a flat unmanaged switch. It has PoE, or maybe PoE plus, hopefully, or maybe not. I mean, maybe it's unmanaged and we have no power, and we're going to just power our 3 cameras. So we did P200. Whoops. Good golly, John. P200 and a P200. And then we bought a keyboard as well. So we've got 3 cameras and a keyboard and an unmanaged switch. What I'm going to recommend is on our vMix PC, we are going to install Discovery Server. And Discovery Server is a part of now the NDI tools download. And what I want you to do is I want you to install Discovery Server, and I want you to assign a static IP address to our vmix NDI machine. Okay, so we're gonna set a static address. We're still gonna have 2 ports on this vmix machine. We're going to assign a static IP on the NDI port. Okay. And then we're going to fire up Discovery Server. And Discovery Server is, what's Newtek's color? Are they like blue or something? I think they're blue. Let's go with blue. So Discovery Server is going to be turned on. But what else I want you to do is I want you to take Discovery Server and I want you to install this in the startup apps for this Windows computer. Okay, so when the computer turns on, you log into it, boom, Discovery Server starts up right away. I don't want a power failure to screw up your NDI installation. Okay, then we're going to log into each of our P200s. We're going to set them up static as well. You're going to need to do this in an isolated realm. Typically, what you would do is you'd power on. Let's say we got DC power, right? So, let's do this. What do we got here? Let's say red. So we're gonna actually power these up. This is, we're gonna power these up with DC. And so they're going to turn on. And when we configure these, we're going to plug these into a computer port. And we're gonna set this up like we're setting up Neuralizer, basically. We're going to log into these locally. You follow the manual to show you how to do that. We're going to log into these. We're going to set these all to static IP addresses. And our IP range, really should be 192.168 and then 1 dot something or something very straightforward, something very basic. Because we want to be able to keep this very straightforward. So these IP addresses are going to be like 1 dot, let's just go with like 4, 1.5, and 1.6. So 192.168, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. Okay, in sequence. And then we're going to take this and we're going to connect these via Ethernet to our unmanaged switch. Now, vmix, this static IP address is also going to be 1 dot something. We're going to call this probably 1.1 or 1.2, something at the very beginning. So in this instance, I'm going to call this 1.1. So this vmix machine will be 1.1. Oh, whoops, wrong color. Oh, well. And so the static IP address for vmix will be 1.1. And then when Discovery Server turns on, it will be known as it's running at 1.1. Okay. Now, inside the P200s, when we're setting up the static information, we are also going to go to the Discovery Server option. We're going to turn that on. And then we're going to put in the Discovery Server IP address of 1.1. Okay, so DS equals 1.1. DS equals, and then DS equals 1.1. All right. We have done a lot more configuration so far than we did with the medium network. I just want to point that out. Okay, so then we need to assign Discovery Server to all and the IP address of 192.168.1.1, and we need to assign static IP addresses to the P200s. And then we need to fire up the keyboard, last but not least, and we need to also assign it a static IP address. So in keeping, we would say it's 1.7, keeping with the ritual, but we also need to turn on the Discovery Server now with NDI 4.5 LTS. So that's 214 or NDI 5. Discovery Server should be an option on there. Discovery Server, and we need to set that as 192.168.1.1 and turn that on. You need to enable Discovery Server. What Discovery Server does is it when you enable that on a bird dog device, it basically tells the device stop broadcasting and just tell Discovery Server your information. And this works in a TCP environment, by the way. The Discovery Server is a great tool to like lower bandwidth needs. But in a static scenario like this is the way that I've seen it work, where it's really consistent and you make sure everybody is identified on the network and communication is working correctly. So Discovery Server 1.1 on the keyboard as well. And we're going to then power up. Well, it's already powered up. But anyways, we would probably reboot each of these devices after we make these network settings, power cycle them, let them come back. And then as you are rebooting them, watch Discovery Server. So it'll be running on the screen, right, on your vmix machine. Watch Discovery Server. And as the unit comes online, make sure that it says, one device found. And it should say the camera name and that it's a source. So if you see all three of the cameras appear and then you see the keyboard, I don't know, will keyboard show up as a destination? have to check that. I don't know how keyboard displays itself in Discovery Server, or if it does actually. Anyways, as you add those together and you go into our unmanaged switch, and this thing, of course, is also powered via DC, the keyboard. Now your vMix machine can be connected to your well, it should have been connected this whole time, but it's connected to this unmanaged switch. But then you can also connect that vMix machine to your cloud offering, so offsite, or your other network or what have you. So the church has an internet network. This is a little bit tricky because I've seen this happen at a lot of churches where they have like a sporadic network that people come and like join over Wi-Fi, and they're downloading their Bible app and reading, whatever, checking out Facebook or whatever they're not supposed to be doing during service, and consuming the bandwidth while service is on. So you go in, you set this all up, you do a test stream, everything looks good. Sunday morning rolls around, you hit go live, and it's just like, and stops working. Really common. It would be better if somehow you could isolate yourself on a separate network, on separate horsepower, in a separate VLAN that has internet, so that the customers at church all show up and bog down the Wi-Fi network, and you have your own pathway out to the ISP. In many scenarios, like in routers and whatever, you can allocate bandwidth, always reserve 20 megs for this network. And usually that's the office network. And so the offices will be offline on Sunday mornings, probably. And so you can route out through the office network and always get consistent download and upload speeds. It's just that's a free tip. That was just for the cost of admission. But anyways, consider that, because you're not going to be installing this on Sunday morning when the church is together. You're going to be installing it on like a Monday afternoon when church isn't going to be in session for several days. And so just be really careful of that, and make sure that you will always have a consistent download and upload speed connection to the network. So in this scenario, I'm actually okay with this because, we have a small network. We've got P200s. They're powered by DC. We've got an unmanaged switch. You got to be careful with your unmanaged switches, okay? Because if you spend $40 on a switch, you're going to get $40 performance. So you got to be careful. Maybe don't have huge expectations when it comes to unmanaged hardware, because I know what the marketing says on the boxes. I've used dozens of different types of unmanaged switches during my day. I know what the marketing says, and it's marketing. So you need to take that with a grain of salt. If all you can afford is a $40 unmanaged switch, it's all good, but you do need to realize that is the performance you're going to get, is $40 worth, not $3,000, which is what the P200s used to run for when they were brand spanking new. So just be aware that that's a limitation. However, the broadcast and the routing and all that will actually be done just fine. The reason why I use keyboard in this scenario is because keyboard really relies on the DHCP and the MDNS to know who's awake and who's alive. There's a good chance in this configuration your keyboard will control the cameras, but will report back no when you connect to them. There's a few things going on there, but without getting too long in the explanation, there's a good chance it's going to say no. They will still be controlled. You can still steer them around and whatever, but it just may not say okay on the screen. It may say no. So just be careful there, and know the limitations of an unmanaged network. And again, keep your expectations pretty low, because this sort of design is workable, but I would hope that you are doing this design in hopes that next budget year you can buy an appropriate switch and then go to this design, which is a whole lot better. Now, this design could also use Discovery Server. You're going to need a Windows machine, but like DS could run. Let's go here. So like Discovery Server could be over here, right? And still service as the same function. I mentioned earlier that one of the cool things about Discovery Server is that it lightens the load of your network, and it literally removes the MDNS broadcasts, because everything just sends its information to the Discovery Server. You would need to set your vMix machine to a static IP address, but for a computer, that's not really a big deal, because you're actually not probably generating NDI that the rest of your network needs. And if you are, the MDNS and the DHCP are going to pick that up off of the vMix machine. So I'm not too concerned about setting static IP address for the vMix computer so the Discovery Server functions correctly. on the vMix machine. I don't care about that, but the rest of the devices all need to be in DHCP mode. Now, if you want to get a little bit more sophisticated with this, you say, yeah, John, okay, that's fine, but I don't really want to have like revolving IP numbers. Okay, two things about this. I've said this a lot, but I need to say this each time we talk about this. Modern day DHCP servers are only going to change the IP address of a device if it runs out of IP addresses or if a device leaves for an extended period of time. And so that's kind of a unique situation. However, there is a way to fix it, and that is called the DHCP reservation list. You guessed it. And in that reservation list, you can reserve specific IP addresses for specific MAC addresses forever. And so you can go into the DHCP service, you can light up the fixed IP list or the DHCP reservation list or whatever they call it. And you can say, for this MAC address, always give it this IP address. And rest assured that unless you physically go in and change it or some sort of act of God nukes your switch, your layer 3 switch, it will never issue that IP address out when it runs out of IP addresses, which your NDI network should not be running out of IP addresses because that means there's other traffic happening on it. Anyways, that's a different discussion. But if it ever needs another IP address in the range, it will not issue the one that you need for that camera. And it will always, regardless of how long that device is gone, it will keep that the same. And so in this scenario, I don't have a keyboard, for example, but if I did, the keyboard requires the IP addresses not to change. And so you would turn on the DHCP reservation list for your 3 cameras and even the rest. You might as well do the rest of them while you're at it, but marry the MAC addresses to IP. And then you say, well, John, why not just set them as static? Because the static stops broadcasting the MDNS information, and then the MDNS doesn't update, and then the keyboard can't see the cameras. So it's better to run it in DHCP mode and then enable the reservation list if you really need to lock down the IP addresses. This also works really well if for some reason you're adding this to a network that does have devices coming and going, like a business environment where you have guests coming in and plugging into your network, which is like a huge security risk. But anyways, if that's the situation, then you can lock up those IP addresses with the reserved IP. And then you always know in this scenario, 192.168.10.12 is camera 2. 10.11 is camera 1. 10.13 is always going to be camera 3. And so on and so forth. But it keeps all of the MDNS information relevant and flowing and current and all of that. So yeah, good stuff. There are ways to take it to the next level in this instance, and that's always exciting. Oh, okay. Holy smokes. I'm getting like all sorts of messages. Okay, so let me just back up here in the chat and jump and answer some questions here that I may have missed while I've been rambling on. And tell me, this is like, I host this show, but like if you think I'm full of it, go ahead. You can say so. I don't mind. I'm okay with as long as it's constructive criticism, I'm fine with it. So if you find that my assumptions and experiences are bollocks, then that's fine. But if you agree with me, it would also be nice to know. For my camera rig, oh, sorry, I already read these, yada, 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 NDI HX, full NDI works. Scotty says, thanks for all the info. I have to leave. All good, Scotty. Thanks for stopping by, although you're probably gone by now. Replace 1 with 2 in link. I shared and check if we have time today to talk about it. That's our next step for the NDI world. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. I actually believe that tab is still open. So let me just do that. Hold on here. I'll load this new one and we'll check that out in a second. The best firewall is an air wall. Okay. I was lazy enough to keep the 4250 on a separate VLAN to avoid plugging and unplugging the LAN cable every time I need to access the flex in the camera. But later I put it on VLAN 10 thanks to John. Oh. Typing makes your handwriting so neat. My handwriting is atrocious, I think. should take a poll every time I write things out. I think it looks like doctor scribble is what it looks like. But that's why churches need Resi. If the public Wi-Fi and production networks are the same. Yeah, yikes, man. We need to put an end to production and Wi-Fi networks being on the same VLAN. We use live view bonding for live streaming. Yeesh, live view. I really like them. Better safe than worry. What's going on, iPhone? How are you? It's good to see you again. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks, John, for such detailed explanation. Oh, I'm glad you feel that way. I am sure lots of views today got some insight into NDI networking. You are full of it. If it equals tasty, tasty spicy meat snacks. Yeah. Wow, that's a good one. Thank you. Good stuff. All right. Well, the last it's 12:30. The last thing is the large network. I mean, is that something we want to talk about? Because it certainly is something that I'd be willing to discuss. And really just about expandability and making it reliable for the end user. And so I'll try and burn through this really quick so that we don't spend a whole lot of time. Let's jump back to page 3 of my fancy dancy little iPad drawing thing here. And really sorry if it's super not legible. But of course, like all things, now here I'm going to, we're really going to talk about sky's the limits, no networking limitations, budget is fairly large, and we can make this a real deal. And we're going to talk about expanding this through multiple rooms with at least 3 cameras per room, and then going to multiple outputs and so on and so forth. So when we set up our network, we want to think about how to do this so that we have redundancy and it's robust. Okay. The 4250, I don't know what that was. The 4250 makes various versions of their switches. And one of the ones that I really like are, and I forget the exact model, but it has 4 SFP ports on it. And you might be like, oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous. Why would I do that? Well, there's actually a reason. And if you're serious about large networking, that's probably your go-to. I don't really care about port number, because in each of these rooms, I'm going to have 3 to 5 NDI devices. So I don't really care about port number. But what I do care about is how many connections I can make to the rest of the network over backbone. And so we want to create some redundancy in how we can manage things. And if a room goes down, it doesn't hurt us at all. And so initially out of the gates, let's just say we want to do a medium to large network install. And this is what I did at NAB, by the way. But then I'm gonna go one more step beyond that. So what I did at NAB is I bought what I lovingly refer to as a fiber core. Okay. And on this, the 4250 line has an all fiber unit. It's like 16 SFP plus ports. They're 10 gigs each. And it's pretty ridiculous. And what I did was I had desks around the studio, around the show at NAB this year in April. And, we had various, I forget how many desks we had. I think we had 7. So let's just be accurate and make 7 different desks. And each of these desks, I was able to bring through, actually I bought, they were blue cables. I had both so these were the PoE plus 4250 switches. They had at the desks, they each had 2 SFP plus ports, and I connected each of those to the fiber core in an auto trunk situation. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, a trunk is basically a pipe that allows all VLAN traffic to travel through the network. And obviously, worst case scenario here is if the fiber core dies, because then everybody's on its own island. Now, there are multiple ways to map this out logically, where you can run things independently. For example, if I want to VLAN every single one of these desks, I could put the VLAN profiles inside the actual fiber core, but not do the DHCP service here, but do VLAN. So like let's say this is table, we're going to go around the clock here. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So, and this was actually like Zoom was running this table over here. So we had 7 different destinations, and so we could do like VLAN 10, 20, 30, kind of like my rule of tens when it comes to how it all works. And this way I could look at the tables and I would know everything on that table is VLAN 40 right away, right? Now, one way that you could do this, I was really fine with doing it the way that I did it, but one way that I didn't do it was that you could then have the VLAN profiles individually on the switches at the desk. And so we could create the VLAN profile internally here. Okay, so VLAN 10 could be housed and managed on that switch. And what you do is you add the VLAN profile, and then you enable, it to be a static IP address, and then you set up the DHCP server on the 4250. But then you could just say all these ports are VLAN 10 on this switch, plug them all in, off you go. And the way that you guarantee that if you needed to make this a little bit more fluid across the entire network is you also add those profiles without the DHCP service on this fiber core. And so we would add, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 60, and 70 here. And so the fiber core can understand what VLAN traffic might be coming across. And I'll give an example why you might do this. But you could set up on each of these their own DHCP service. So if the fiber core dies, everybody operates independently and the DHCP services are still running, all good. Everything's up and running. Or you could do what I did. And we were only going to run this for 6 days, I think we ran it for. And so what I did was I set up the VLANs inside the fiber core. And in the VLANs in the fiber core, I set up, 10, 20, 30, all the way through 70. And I set every single VLAN in the core to have the DHCP service enabled for that VLAN. Then all I had to do was go to the respective desk, configure this switch to be, I just did an erase, configure this switch to be VLAN 10. And what happened was the DHCP server for VLAN 10 here on the fiber core sent the 10 IP requests, the VLAN 10 requests, to this switch. But then I did it for all of them because this fiber core has a lot more horsepower than these little ones on the outside. And so the reason why I did it was because we had the horsepower to handle it on the fiber core, but then it could issue all the IP addresses. And then if I needed to make a change to any of the VLANs, I only log into the fiber core. I don't have to take my computer around to the other desks or whatever. So then what I did from a networking management standpoint is I ran a cable from the fiber core to my desk. And that was in the podcast booth that I was running. And if I needed to do anything or edit anything on the network, I just logged into it right there and was able to change any setting I needed. And now I couldn't change the settings individually that I had set on each of the switches, but essentially the switch setup is identical across the entire fleet. The only thing I'm changing is the VLAN number. So now I know logically in my head, I mean, I could have written it all down, I guess, but I know that's table 1, that's table 2, that's table 3, that's table 4. And so if Jake comes to me and says, hey, I'm plugging in this camera, but it's not booting or it's not getting an IP address, I know exactly where to find those answers. I know exactly how to troubleshoot that from a centralized networking guy who's going to be the guy at the show that runs the network. It's a pretty simple, flat layout. Now, there is a flaw here that I have one fiber core, and if it gets fried, then all my islands are going to be literal islands, and I'll need to set up individual VLANs on each of these switches. And none of them will be able to talk to each other. But one of the advocates for why I set this up, and I passed this by NewTek just to make sure that I wasn't, making it up in my head logically and thinking that that was the answer. But they did approve this design. One of the reasons why I did this is because there were places on this network on switches that I needed to send packets from other VLANs. All right. So I needed to, for example, have a .7 address on the .1 switch. And you would be like, well, why is that a problem? Well, if the DHCP server resides over here on the 7 switch, right over here, and I need that to get over to the 1, we're going to have to send a request through multiple switches to get that request. In this design, you only have to request it from one hop, from over the fiber, from the fiber to the fiber core in any scenario. And if you were to send an NDI signal from one desk to another, it would only ever have to go through two switches. It would leave the switch, the home switch, right, from the desk, but it would hit the fiber core, switch 1, and go to the other switch, like at desk 5. So 2 switches ever would only ever have to go through that. We also were running most of this network in TCP, and so bandwidth was a consideration. Each of these fiber connections are 10 gigs. And when auto trunk is enabled on the 4250, it combines those two to load balance. So I had 20 gigs per table through the entire network. It was sweet. So we did not have any sort of bandwidth restrictions or anything like that. Now, if I could do it again next year, what would I change about the? One last thing, one last consideration. So I wanted to get a 7 address on the 1, and there was a specific reason for that. I wanted to get a 7 address on the 10 VLAN, right? All you have to do is go into the 4250 switch that you've got at table 1. Okay, so this table right here, you just log into that switch and you just highlight the port you want and say VLAN 7. And now that port on that switch will always give you a .7 address. So the fiber core knows anything that requests VLAN 70 is going to get a 7 address. And so then the request comes from desk 1, that's traditionally VLAN 10. The request comes to join VLAN 7 or VLAN 70, and it issues it an IP address of .7. And so it's a really simple way to keep it all straight, but also make it really simple to customize as things come up. Because somebody says, I want to have we had a couple of Bird Dog guys that were like, we want to sit over here at Zoom's desk, but we need to get like access to those cameras on desk 2. No problem. It took me literally 5 minutes. I logged into that. So I plugged my computer, which was a Mac. There are other things to talk about there when customizing 4250s with Macs, multiple 4250s with Macs. But anyways, oh man, there's so much to talk about there. But anyways, I would just plug my computer into the switch that they wanted access to that VLAN and just light up the 2 ports that they wanted to use with those VLANs, and then they were given access to those. Easy peasy, nice and simple. And it was a great way to do this. Now, in this scenario, you can think of these as multiple rooms. So we got rooms 1 through 7, and we've got cameras inside there. We want to unify it. We want the flexibility to be able to pull signals from other VLANs if needed from anywhere on the network. It's totally possible, but the logical map is everybody's isolated unless I say otherwise. So I like this idea. Now, how can I make this more redundant? Well, the answer there is more money. It literally is more money. So like the previous network, we're going to have a fiber core, same fiber core as we had before, but you guessed it, we're actually going to have another fiber core, and it's not going to operate in redundancy mode. It's going to just be redundant for the network. So if one of these cores dies, which is, I'm considering this for next year, but if one of these cores dies, we're still up and running. And auto trunk is nice because it will detect which switches are plugged in where and will make the appropriate adjustments. And so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to trunk these guys together. Okay, so I'm going to trunk these guys, and we're going to say probably 2. But if I have other fiber ports open at the end of this, so we have 16 ports on each, I'm actually only going to use 7 ports on each. So what you might do is do this number, and so on and so forth. So you can trunk multiple lines together, and these 2 switches will see them as trunk lines. And now I've got 40 gigs, as long as I'm running 10 gig operation. Yoink, SFP mods. So now we're going to go back now, and we're going to set up our same. What was that? Now we're going to yoink. Now we're going to do this. So we got 1, 2. We got desks again, right? So if you're at NAB, visualize my booth at NAB, not my booth, Bird Dog's booth. It was ours. And here we're going to now yoink, yoink. now we're going to connect each of these desks, but we're going to do it in a way that's redundant. And if these switches, so the switches that we had at NAB had 2 SFP plus ports, which are 10 gigs each. And in that scenario, I would do this, right? So we would do this number. Okay. And then we would, oh boy, this guy needs to also go like this. All right, makes sense? So if one of my fiber cores goes down, we still have 10 gigs up to the system, which is, for our scenario, is plenty. But if, so if we lose a fiber core, everybody is still functional. Everybody still gets their information that they need, but they can still communicate with each other as well. And what this does is just create so that when you have a problem, or say you need to take one of your fiber cores out for maintenance, or you're going to do update or something like that, the whole system still functions. And so this is beautiful if you're running a robust network to create something that's a little bit more intelligent. Now the question becomes, where do you host the DHCP information for this? Because the master fiber switch, obviously, if you eliminate that, you're going to have a hiccup in service. And so this is where you would probably put the DHCP service per VLAN inside the individual switches. So we would set up, number one, come on now. We'd set up, desk number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we would put the DHCP services inside each of these layer 3 switches. We would put the profiles for each of those in both of these, And then these switches could understand these VLAN packages that are coming over the trunks, but then they could also, if you needed to light up, VLAN 70 over on VLAN 10, right? So this is VLAN 70. If you need that network over here on this network, all you have to do is light up that VLAN port, and these fiber cores, whoops-a-daisy, and these fiber cores are going to be able to pass that broadcast data through to the appropriate switch and then get an IP address. So it's a little bit more sophisticated in terms of every desk would have its own, or every room or every studio would have its own DHCP service running locally on its 4250 that's in the room. But you could then rely on the fiber core to pass that data around at a fairly robust. Now, unfortunately, you're kind of losing out on the horsepower of the fiber core, because the fiber cores are a little bit more, as I understand the technical specs, they're a little bit more powerful than the average 4250, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading that incorrectly. I don't know. But in this scenario, again, money is no object. We might buy the switches that have 4 SFP plus ports on them, which would be the 48 or the 24 of the 48s, I believe, have 4 SFP plus ports. And in that case, now you guessed it, now we double down. And so we do trunks to both from the same switch. And this gets really pricey because you're buying a lot of SFP mods, and you're buying and you're buying a lot of fiber cables and what have you. But if it dies, guess what? We have 20 gigs at least. Whoops, and one more right up here. We have 20 gigs still throughput instead of 10. And it's going to guarantee that your network is never going to be the bottleneck, no matter how big you get this thing. The other and final and probably more crucial piece on this design is with NDI 5, you're probably going to run multicast from here on in, because there's a lot going on. TCP would be fine if you just want to check a source, but you're going to want to run this in multicast, because the fiber cores are really going to shine then, especially if you're passing information between rooms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As that goes on, you're definitely going to want to reduce the workload of the camera, of the actual connections to the camera across the wire, and create the multicast, which leaves it up to the network. And in this scenario, if you've got, let's go with, I don't know, 8 to 10 sources on a switch in each of these rooms, if you're running in multicast, you've definitely got the horsepower to handle that. Discovery server. Oh, and the final thing here is is these should also be connected via fibers. And so you're not going to have any bottlenecks when it comes to these units talking to each other. And you can set up the internet however you want it to do. So you want the internet to come in on the data VLAN, which is traditionally known as VLAN 1, or that's like an unassigned VLAN. VLAN 1, you'd have your internet come in on there. And then inside the DHCP setup, you would set the default gateways to be the DNS, or to be the gateway for the internet one, so that if you want to get out to the internet, you tell the switches to reference that IP address. So there's ways to do it, and we can get into that another day. But again, this is like money is no object. You're probably easily looking at, I don't know, $20,000 for something like this, maybe more. But that's and this is 7 rooms. This is a pretty big, sophisticated thing. And full disclosure, we were loaned the switches that we used for most of our network. I bought 4, but we were loaned the switches that we used for NAB. And let me tell you something. That design that we did I save that? Yeah, this design right here, I had no networking issues. Matter of fact, I spent 4 hours one day because we were having some frame drops, and it ended up being a piece of beta firmware that we were testing out. But we were having some frame drops, and I was able to go in. I configured things a little bit differently, tested things out, and proved that my network was not dropping frames. There are even statistics inside the 4250, if you want to get right down to it, that show you what packets have been dropped, how many, what connection, all sorts of stuff. So 4250 is really a powerful piece, and a piece of networking equipment, and I really appreciate the intention that they've gone to all extents to get that thing working correctly. But these are kind of like where I would start with the NDI world. There are ways to do it, and ways that I would like the unmanaged, this thing, for example. This should work. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily like recommend that this where we go first. I would say if money is a problem, we should probably consider something like this to really do NDI well. But look, if you're really not able to secure the funding to do, a preferred in a small install, this should in theory work. Really be careful with what switch you buy. Get at least the nicest unmanaged switch you can find. Avoid anything with link in the name. You know who you are. And but yeah, get something of decent quality. You can spend a couple $100 or maybe even $100 and get something halfway decent. But this is kind of like to hold you over. And it should really be for small install, that small bare bones, install. This scenario, though, is this scenario and this scenario are great for run and gun. So if you're going to like a hotel conference room, right? And they've commissioned you to record the conference. This scenario, this medium and this small, this medium, I know guys using this right now, where they show up, they take their 4250 out, and they put it on the table, they power it on. They go around and they set up their tripods, they put their cameras on top. Then they run their Ethernet cables and they plug them into their powered on 4250, and they plug in their cameras. Their cameras do the little boot up dance, and they get their IP addresses. They plug in their vMix machine. All the sources appear in vMix because the IPs are all the same, and vMix got the same IP address, and they're off to the races. I know people that use this all the time, and it's a good little setup. I think that it works really well. And there's we just had somebody email our marketing guys and said, what would have taken us like 36 hours to tear down and get into Pelican cases and trunks and everything like that, it took us 30 minutes for the camera rig they had, because they were using Bird Dog stuff and the simplified network idea. So it's really interesting to see how people are using it. But I know for a fact that this scenario right here is being used in multiple scenarios. I also know this is being used in multiple scenarios with varying results, but it is being used, and in theory, that should work. What people normally miss about this setup is the discovery server item, because they just think, I'll just set everything to static and then I'll turn it all on. It's like you're missing some key elements here. So discovery server is really the key to making this setup work correctly, because it will do the things that you are missing on the network when it comes to a managed or unmanaged network. It will do the majority of the functions that you're missing. You're still missing some performance stuff. Like unmanaged switches, for example, they don't really have performance standards. A lot of them are fanless, for example, which means they're not expecting to generate a bunch of heat. Has anybody stood around a 4250 when you're running it like with 4K sources on it, whatever? Those things get warm. Like we're pushing some data. The switch should get warm. Fanless things, I don't know. I don't know. Your results may vary. That's all. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying your results may vary. And then, we get more and more ridiculous as time goes along. Of course, there are cameras plugged into each of these tables and all that sort of thing. And then our redundancy mode, which really gets a bit messy. But yeah, that auto trunking feature on the 4250s, that's golden. That's super helpful. It's great. You barely have to do anything to get it to work. So there you go. I hope that was insightful in some regard. I keep looking over at the chat and I keep seeing you are full of it. Tasty, spicy meat snacks. Discovery server, explain as we're 5 years old, please. What does it do? So Discovery server is a service that actively runs on your Windows computer, that when you point a device at it, the device sends its broadcast to the Discovery server, and the Discovery server recognizes that it's on the network, actively recognizes that it's on the network and that it is working. When that device, for example, gets powered off, Discovery server will see it leave the network. When you don't have a Discovery server on a static network, nobody knows when you come and go. And the static node, the network node, let's say the Bird Dog camera in this instance, when it's set in static, does not send out a broadcast in static and say, here I am, everybody know who I am. You can force it to do it by opening Studio Monitor, because Studio Monitor requires all NDI sources on the network to identify themselves at all times. But even then, you'll notice this happen on a static network. When you leave Studio Monitor open for a while, like say an hour, and then you go and you open the list, it will be out of date. If you've been moving and taking NDI sources on and off the network, you'll notice that list will be out of date, and you'll need to restart Studio Monitor to get that broadcast request to happen again. But when you first open Studio Monitor on a computer, it will demand that every NDI source on the network identify who it is so it can populate the list. It's a similar thing that's happening, but Discovery server will, if you point a device, let's say a Bird Dog device, at a Discovery server, it will say, hey, here I am. Here's my broadcast request. I was told there's a Discovery server at this IP address. Here I am. The trick with Discovery server is if you don't belong to Discovery server, you won't see any sources. And so if you're, for example, wanting to see the sources in Studio Monitor on a PC, you need to open Access Manager, go to the Advanced tab, and say, I am using a Discovery server and it's at this IP address. A computer not running Discovery server. Okay, so you have a Windows computer, say it's like your vMix machine, and it's running Discovery server. You don't have to tell that one that it's running Discovery server, because it is going to be receiving all the requests at that IP address. So the internal routing table and everything will handle that for you. But if you take a computer, let's say I have a laptop or a stellar Microsoft Surface Pro, like my team enjoys here. I can't say my boys anymore because we hired a female. My team here loves the Microsoft Surface, sarcasm. And you have a Discovery server running on your network, it won't find the sources unless you go into Access Manager and say, by the way, also check this IP address, because that's where the master list is. And that's what it's doing. It's compiling a list of NDI sources, but you have to specifically tell it, this is where you find the Discovery server, and then Discovery server will keep an active list going. And so when the sources come on and off the network, it will see them come on. So that's what that does. When you think you understood everything, then comes Fiber Core. I think I have to take the Network Plus course seriously. So a Fiber Core is literally just in my instance, I mean, people use the term a little bit loosely these days, which is fine. But Fiber Core is basically the thing that I'm using to make my network communicate to each other. And the fiber ports are extremely fast and are high performance. Even SFP ports are high performance ports. They're just running a gig, but you can get a lot more data down a fiber port than you can down an Ethernet port, just based on flat out speed. It depends on modules and stuff that you buy, but in general, the fiber ports are great for speed and for long distances. For example, like multi-mode fiber can run 550 meters. That's a crazy long distance. And so if you're setting up, like, that's, most university campuses, unless you're talking about dark fiber, then you do single mode fiber. Single mode fiber can go miles, like miles. It's what they use for like telephone services across northern Canada. They bury fiber cables next to railroad, next to railroads, basically to the tracks. They bury them under gravel, and they just send them through the Canadian boreal forest, and quite literally for miles and miles, or kilometers upon kilometers, they can send telephone signals. And so long ago are the days of copper cables that are telephone lines. Everything's fiber up there these days, which is really cool. But they can go miles. It's single mode is what that is. And single mode can go really, really long distances. And there are varying degrees of that. Sky's the limits, really. If money is no object. The trick with single mode is that you need a transmit and you need a receive. Whereas multi-mode is usually dual fiber, but it's transmit and receive back and forth. Both fibers will do either or, so it can alternate. Hence multi-mode. It has two modes, transmit and receive, can do both. Single mode is traditionally a single fiber, and you need two of them, one for transmit and one for receive, so you can have the two-way conversation. So there you go. The fiber core is just the brain that all the fibers come back into and pass through that silicone. And so fiber cores are traditionally beefier switches. They're still technically switches, but they're beefier networking units because they're handling large volumes of data and routing it throughout your entire network to certain tables and switches. And so, needless to say, at NAB this year, I was not using the maximum capacity of my fiber core. It was totally overkill. But if you want to go again, if you want to go the next level up, you could do the dual core for redundancy. So if one fiber core needs to be down for maintenance, or you want to do a firmware update, it doesn't matter. Everything still has 20 gigs all the way through, and that's generally pretty good for most large installs these days. What is that switch at center of the fiber core? So the fiber core is, are you looking for the actual model? Because I can find it. So the M4250 line, not fiber optics, this guy. Ooh, so pretty. So the fiber core that I was using is called the model number is XSM4216F, as in Fred. Let me throw that in the chat just for... Oh crap. Wait, why didn't that copy? Come on now. Control C. Why? That's annoying. To do this like a barbarian. Copy and paste with the mouse. All right. So this was the switch that I was using for the fiber core. And if you look at the photos, it's on Newegg and it's on a few other places. If you look at the back of the switch, you'll see the 16 fiber ports. I mean, this is like a networking guy's total dream, is to have this thing operating in his network. And I'm really hoping to get one for our new office space, because it'd be great to, practice what you preach in your own environment. But basically, that's the core that I was using. And I was running dual SFP plus fiber multi-mode back to this thing on each desk. And then some of the desks had two switches, some of them had one. And so I would marry them together, just depending on what we were doing there. But we had 10 gigs back to the fiber core to the remainder of the network. But it's what I lovingly refer to as a single hop network. It basically just goes to the core and then it's at the other desk. And so if you ever need to send a signal around the booth, it's a beautiful, very fast, very, you don't have to like jump through 6 or 7 switches to get to the destination. You don't have to worry about one of those switches having a like wing and out issue. If something's failing on the network, it's just localized to that location. So really a great nerdy, totally nerdy switch, but yeah, good times. All right, sorry, let me cycle back here. Why wouldn't you sit by your desk and log into the different switches from there? Why couldn't you sit by your desk and log into the different switches? Well, you can. So in my that's kind of what I was referring to is I could control anything on the network from my podcast desk, basically being plugged into the fiber core. So like because the switch itself, okay, so one of the things that I did was I designated every switch to have an IP address on the data VLAN or the unassigned VLAN, which is VLAN 1. So every switch had a 1 address. And so then if I need to make a change to a switch, I could just dial in 192.168.1.2, table 2, and it would take me to that switch. And then I could make configurations from my podcast booth on that table over there, you know? And then I need to get into 7 and edit something for the Zoom table, just 1.7. And I logged into their main switch and I made the alterations for them and it lit up that port. So, hey guys, I don't know. I think you may be able to hear me. The question will be, can you see me? I don't think so. Let me just restart this real quick. Anybody let me know. Hey, NetHab can hear me. Excellent. Okay, so weird thing. We blew a fuse in the office, and yeah, that happens every now and then. So we'll have to back it up here. Bouncing bubble around your face. Excellent. That's what I want. Now, for some reason, StreamYard won't see the NDI signal. So just give me 1 second. I'm just going to restart that real quick. Oh, there we go. All right. So, boy, that was weird. I mean, not weird, but I know what happened. And we're back. This is going down as the longest show ever. All right, so let's jump back to these questions real quick before we. Okay, I thought that you said that you went to the desk and you plugged in your Mac. Yes. Okay. So initially I had designed it that way, but then I had decided that I didn't want to spend all the time walking around, especially during the show, and so I ended up doing that differently, where I had the one address, basically. Each of the desks all had a one address, all had a data port because we weren't using all of them. And then we were able to just log into them directly from my podcast booth after the fact. So this is weird. My confidence monitor is now off, which means my play, did the play reboot? I don't know. Anyways, more on that in a minute. Oh, there it is. Hang on. Hey, there it is. Okay, good times. Okay, now we're officially back up and running. Wow, that I should probably practice that. What happens if we shut down the entire booth? Okay, so is it just me or is the video frozen? What happened to John? So we had a power outage. We just popped a breaker. This whole studio is right next to the kitchen, and so if they boil water or make coffee and use the microwave at the same time, it always breaks. So I'm not normally into the 1 o'clock hour, and so that's why that's happening. All black except for comments. Is it just me or no? It wasn't just you, and I'll clear that one now. Yeah, sorry, studio died. Okay, now we'll run down. We're not going anywhere. You shouldn't use that deal. Yeah, I probably should have some battery backups. Is what I should probably have. That would be a little bit more. It's just the studio hasn't gotten that sophisticated yet. It keeps growing, but it hasn't gotten that sophisticated. So, yes, we can hear you. We can finally hear you. We see a bouncing bubble. Thumbs up. That's always good. I tried to help you end the show abruptly. You can only use one appliance at the time while you're on the show, or ever. I mean, we bust that fuse when we try and boil water. So anyways, it's not a huge deal. That stuff happens. Of course, my cameras are all in different orientations now. So the PF-120, of course, it hasn't changed. It came back just fine. But what camera is this? Oh, this is the P120 is now staring off into space, and so we can adjust that one here while we're sorting all of this out. So let's see here. Nope, not that one. This one. Boom. The P100 above me came back correct. Whoa, look at that. Those are some serious manual settings there, folks. So we're gonna. Whoa, that's fun. And that autofocus is something else too. Okay, so let's. Oh gosh. All right, let's change this because that's painful to look at. Newsflash: don't boil water when John is live. John's studio shares power with our kitchenette. So by starting the microwave, I blew the power. Oh, Brayton is going to take he's taking the fall for this one, evidently. It's all good. I'm not too mad. I'll just take it out of your paycheck. So Bird Dog is our super secret password, and then yoink. Let's take a look at that coloration is brutal. So our exposure is probably off if we just change this. Yeah. So I think it's got to be there. That's what it was. I think it's got to be the preset. Although I think I've saved this. I need to save preset 1. All right. Well, we'll give that a try. Okay, so that camera's back to reality. There's that PF120, and let's see anything else. Oh yeah, the P400 is now staring at a box. So let's change that. Yeah, you think I'd have this stuff all set up so it would come back automatically, but here we go. So we're gonna set that up correctly. This is my from a distance shot. Actually, it's a little too distant, don't you think? There we go. Get a little tighter shot on there. Looking good, John. I say to myself. All right. I think that's everybody now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, everyone's back. All right, so we're good to go. Yeah, we definitely should consider getting some battery backup in this office, evidently, because that was unfortunate. Although we probably need some pretty big batteries to keep us floating. Well, actually, I'll have to think about that, actually. That may not be a bad idea. Newsflash: don't boil water while John's live. Close and personal. Yeah, we could really get that thing dialed in real close if we wanted to. But anyways, I'll save that for another show because it's 1:15 in the afternoon, people. So did I finish the sentence? I know I was mid-sentence saying something while I was talking about this network design. It looks like my backpack didn't get saved to the profile when I added it here today. So let me just throw that on here one more time. It should be saved on here because I'm using it for the education course as well. What is that? I don't know what that is. And yoink. This is green. Why is this green? It's almost like it's a configure source. It's almost like, oh, there it goes. I got you. I just had to restart it. Okay. So my pretty face is not on this, but this is what we were kind of reviewing before we took a hiatus there for about 15 minutes. So this is kind of my ideal. If I could recommend something, and and money is always a consideration. I don't know too many places where money is not a consideration, and so we're not clueless to that, right? We know that people have to have money considerations in most scenarios, and so that's fine. That honestly is really how I would recommend doing it, just because it seems to be it seems to be a great compromise between the two, and gives you the flexibility to expand quickly, also the expandability of a DHCP network, but it doesn't limit you in the initial setup. It gives you the brain power to handle larger installs and all that sort of thing. So this is kind of the most reasonable there. I was just putting my picture back in the corner. Hi, everybody. So this seems to give us, and of course, Balu's comment is over top. So yoink. Hey, there I am. So this gives us the flexibility to expand quickly and then have a flexible network if we need to bring devices on or off, but also guarantee that things will always work every time we fire it up. And so some people leave their networks on 24/7, and some people choose to power them down every week because they're only there once a week or something like that. Either way is fine. I have found that the 4250 is great. If you set it up in this configuration, is generally really good with powering it off each week and powering it back on. You don't lose any of your settings. It saves them, remembers them, especially with DHCP reservation lists. That all works really well too. So it's a great little run and gun or shut it down for the week and come back next week type of scenario. And it gives some consistency for the end user who is primarily, looking to train volunteers and people that are not networking people. This is a great way to do that. So I like this. This I don't like as much, but it is possible. And then this stuff is just redundancy and fiber cores and all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, lots to consider there. Hopefully you have found some of that helpful as we have dealt with a bunch of stuff. How is the overhead camera? The overhead camera is good. It seems to be just fine. That's the home position though for that one. So it seems to work all right. And there's nothing to eat, so I'm not going to show that camera anymore. But anyways, yeah, that's generally the overhead camera. You should save those presets on camera. Yes, I should. And did I do the 400? No, I didn't do the 400. Okay, I'll do that right now. So if I were to bring this up, so here's that 400. So we're just going to store that, and then I'll power cycle this after the show and see if that makes any difference. The 400 is there. This is that PF120 that now needs to be. I like putting the microphone. You notice I have the crosshairs on this one, eh? So I like putting the microphone kind of like center and then me like off, because generally I'm talking this way. So I feel like that's always good. So we're going to store preset 1 there. That might be preset memory off though. I'm not too sure. So we'll figure that out. PF120 came back, 100 came back, 200 came back, and the 400 we just saved. Okay, so I think that's everybody. So there is that, and we will see what happens. This is really strange because the screen that I'm using has like a weird ratio, and it's 1080p, but it squishes it a little bit. It's really annoying. And so I'm thinner on that screen just slightly than I am everywhere else. And so I'm like, that's not what I look like. And I go to adjust things, and then it looks different on other screens. It's really throwing me off. But anyways, I want to use that screen because it has no other function. So that is why I have that one on there. Yoink. Now I will go into my studio and reconfigure the switch as per your recommendations. Oh, there you go. Feel free to reach out to us at help@birddog.tv if you have any questions while you do that. And so here, I'll put that up here for visual reference. But yeah, hit us up, man, if you've got questions as you go through that. Yeah, remember the VLAN stuff isolates those units. I mean, that's primarily the function of it, is that it puts up walls around it, so other VLANs can't talk to it. And so if that's what you want to do, and you want to isolate those cameras and those things into that one room or group or whatever you're doing, it's a great way to do it. And the DHCP stuff can handle that portion of the management side of things. The 4250 also has a DHCP reservation option, but it's very manual, and it's done on the main UI side. I think I demonstrated that on the 4250 highlight reel. So yeah, for sure, you should check that out on the Bird Dog YouTube page. It'll say how to set DHCP reservation lists. Check that out. There's a tutorial on how to do that. So if you're curious as to how to make that happen, that is a place to do that. All right, folks, I really appreciate you hanging on today. And the fact that half of you hung around after our power outage says something to me. I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for riding along. Hopefully you found today's discussion somewhat meaningful or useful, or in any regard, I guess. But yeah, we're really thankful that you're here and you're hanging out with us. In the meantime, between now and Tuesday, and I might be doing something different on Tuesday, stay tuned for the announcement on that on birddogjohn.tv. If you haven't done so already, please go over and subscribe to that channel. That is my YouTube channel for the company, and I like to post everything I do here there. And so if you miss a day or whatever, that's where you can find the full show. But birddogjohn.tv, we're gaining some subscribers. GoWeb has been a big advocate, big hype man for that process. And so we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the show over there on YouTube. That would help me out greatly and help us continue to legitimize the show with my bosses and with the NDI community, but also YouTube and all those sorts of outlets. So feel free to follow us over there, birddogjohn.tv. That would be greatly appreciated. Any other plans to have Jake on the show someday to talk about Bird Dog Cloud? Yes, we have put something. Have we put something on the calendar? Anyways, I am planning on having him back on because you may have saw that the Bird Dog Cloud Connect app was launched for iPhone. Is it iPhone? Anyways, it was launched the other day. It's an app, and yeah, we need to talk about that. So I'll get him on the show here in the next couple of weeks and talk through some of that. Hey, Wixton, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for the great questions and the compliments. I really appreciate that. Good luck with your ventures with your 4250. As of now, I use the Venues DHCP, but now I got it. There you go. Little consistency with yours, eh? What I love about that setup, and I think you're going to enjoy it too, is it will be the same every time, and you won't have to guess anymore. It'll be the same IPs that your Switch issues, and if you get into the DHCP reservation stuff, it will be the same IPs you issue. So good stuff. I would love to do a detailed demo. Then we would love to do a detailed demo with Jake. Yeah, he's always down for that. And I think your guy in your zone is Jason, who would also be able to execute that in your time zone. So, but yeah, we should have Jake on the show, and then you guys can watch and join us for that. So hopefully you have found this helpful, and hopefully that you plan to join us again. Thanks so much. Join us on Tuesday. We might try and do something fun on Tuesday with some guests. I'm still putting that together, so we'll see how that pans out. But in the meantime, be good to each other. Enjoy the upcoming weekend. That's happening sometime tomorrow, hopefully for you. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And we will catch you guys in the next one, whether that's next week or in the near future. Be good. We'll see you in a couple days. Bye.